is From Dirt We Grow. And also, this is the place for the truth and the deep dives into real issues that it will take to make real changes. I am Stephanie Kendall, and I'm happy to have you here. Be sure you listen, be sure to share, because our military trains people to be strong, to endure, to carry on without breaking. Mental health struggles in the military are not rare. They're real, they're all too common, and all too often ignored. And today we're going to break that silence. You'll hear the story of a veteran who carried the weight of service all through his service and long after the uniform even came off, and how the stigma and suppression of mental health support has left scars deeper than the battlefield. This may be his story, but it's a reflection of an issue that thousands of veterans face and a reminder of why we must listen, learn, and try to do better. So, as I said, this is so important to share. Please share the episode. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you have not already. And let me introduce you and welcome to the show today, Mr. James Mummert. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Stephanie, so much. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, my name's James Mummert. I am one of two of the co-hosts of Joint Discussions Pod. That the other two is my partner, Lauren, and I. We are merging a family of four and four to eight through a divorce process, and we also are ex-pastors, both of us. So we have a podcast that kind of focuses on deconstruction and post-divorce life, but I'm also a veteran, just like you said, and as you are as well. And I'm so excited to come and talk to you today on this podcast.
But yeah, we'll have of course, the link for the pod in the episode's description for any of you that would like to check it out. Please do. What were you in the army, by the way? Sorry, I don't know if you were in the army. What?
I was in the Air Force. I served in the early 2010s. My job primarily was working in the drone world and intelligence world, that side of things for the military. So I did that for a while.
How long were you in?
So I did my 4 year enlistment and knew by that time that I was definitely not going to be sticking around. I joined later in life, had already went to college, and went there to kind of further myself financially because I had plans to get out and have this top secret clearance and go make the big bucks. And
Hmm.
so that was my really initial reason for joining. I would love to say that it was some sort of patriotic thing, but honestly, there was a benefit for me to get free school and a good clearance and serve the country and all the things that that entails for 4 years. It was an easy trade for me.
Yeah, I mean, they do sell it pretty well, with yeah, you get school, you get to see the world, you get this, you get training, you get all this stuff. So they sell all your benefits pretty well.
They do. They do. But I mean, looking back at the recruiting days and seeing the things and the tactics that were used to get somebody in, there's a lot of bullshit that happens with that. And it gets a lot of people into something that ultimately may affect you for the rest of your life. And that's what the Air Force did to me. I did get all of those things. I got the great job, and we can get into, kind of those kind of things. But ultimately, it cost me a lot of mental health and some pretty severe PTSD and other things. So there's a trade off that was never really talked about. And mental health during that time, and I probably even still today, and definitely beforehand, was kind of thrown in the corner or in the closet of military. Like they never addressed it. It was never something that was important to them.
Do you know what caused your PTSD? What do you know what where was it like a big switch all of a sudden, or was it like slow over time?
So I would really attribute it primarily to the career that I did. I was forward deployed for most of that time. And then I did deploy later on overseas. But every single day we would work from stateside and be present on the other side of the country, chasing bad guys and doing some other things. And so I was a part of that kill chain that would ultimately take out some bad guys, sure, but over time there would be a woman or there would be an elderly person, or there might be a
Mm.
child, and that was simply
Collateral damage.
used as collateral damage, and that just I mean, that's fucked up. It's fucked up no matter how you look at it. I have my own fairly strong opinions on war in general, especially the one that was in the Middle East, but killing innocent women and children is never okay in war, and it just was so excused as commonplace that it really made it difficult to look at people around you stateside. And so it was a process over time. I did this job for about 6 or 7 years, all said and done. And in those 6 or 7 years, you see a whole bunch, and a whole bunch which you can never unsee.
So, yeah, you were pretty it's deep for you. Like I was coming at this kind of lighthearted and yeah, I guess we didn't even talk about how deep this went for you.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, take it that deep, but when we talk about veteran affairs and how vets are treated when they get out, it's important to recognize how we got there in the first place.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I love for you to tell your story, and I don't mean that you shouldn't, and I don't. I'm not trying to say that you get somewhere it shouldn't go. There's a lot of people that are in the military that just kind of fly through it. They do their job. They don't really see a lot of these things that are kind of horrendous, like you're explaining.
So that's the thing about military service is that everyone has a different experience, and a lot
Hmm.
of those experiences can be shaped from things like what your well, I think in the Air Force they call it AFSC, but I think it's MOS in the Army, what your
Hmm.
job code is to where you get stationed, when so
Did you pick your job, or did they kind of give it to you when you were signing up?
So I did pick my job, not knowing, of
Okay,
course, what actually was going to be entailed with it, but
right.
essentially I'd gotten some advice from someone who was in their late 40s, early 50s at the time when I was thinking about going in. They were priorly retired Air Force, like a colonel or something. He said, "Hey, if you're looking to really maximize your potential, especially earning potential or just education potential, look for these 4 or 5 jobs. Look for jobs that carry a top secret clearance." And so, like, sometimes people hear top secret and you get so Hollywoodized that you think that that's something super spy secret stuff, but there's so many levels of that kind of world. But get this clearance and do your time, and you'll come out and you'll have experience and you'll be offered jobs that are mid six figures as soon as you're out. And so that was my driving force. I was someone who was straddled with student loan debt. I had went to college first, like I
Mm.
said. I went to a private liberal arts school. Really just had no direction with what I was wanting to do in life. And so I had all these student loan debts. And so I was very motivated financially to try to pay that off so that I felt like I could actually start being an adult. So I went and I took the ASVAB and scored, really well on it. So they were able to say, hey, if you want to pick, you can have these 4 or 5 jobs. And so the one that the colonel had talked to me about, that whole list was right there. And so I picked one. And little did I know that it was going to be so effective on my mental health ultimately, but also my overall outlook in life too. I would have to credit that as well. But we can talk about that here shortly if you want as we get into it.
So that's why you said when you did your 4 years, you knew that was it, because of the mental toll it took on you it had on you?
So I joined when I was 23. So I was for the average age of, the person entering the military is right around high school or 20 maybe. So I was definitely a little older already. I was having trouble within the first year being the same age as my supervisors. I've never really been one to do well with certain kinds of authority. And I understood that I was not going to make it very long in the military without getting written up several times because people who were my boss on paper, I was their boss in the mission. Or in
Mm.
real life, when we walked out of the building of work, we were the same age and I had just as much experience in everything as you, but some folks like to lord that kind of authority over others. So between that and also, yeah, within a year or two, I was seeing the mental effects of it already. I knew that it wasn't something that I was going to do long term. You know, we were working 12-hour missions, which usually meant an hour pre-mission briefing and a hour post-mission briefing. So you're talking almost 14-hour days. And we'd work these weird Panama schedules, you know, like Sunday through Wednesday and then Wednesday through Saturday. But then we also had to work nights because what they would like to say is that, you know, terrorists don't sleep at night and like our night. So it's daytime over there. And that's when a lot of things can happen. So you have to have shifts on both sides. So we would alternate shifts every 3 months, 4 different shifts. And so it took a toll on you physiologically as well.
So you said they didn't treat like they didn't take you did you ever like go to anybody and say, "Hey, I'm having some mental, I'm having some problems here. I need to talk to somebody. I need something's not right. I'm affected." Did you seek out any help? It was there any help? Was there anywhere you could go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was again back 2011 to 2015 was my active time. But in that on the base in our building, we had a therapy dog. That was our mental health help was a therapy dog that would walk the
No.
hallways and you could pet it. It was this really nice Labrador retriever. I mean, such the cutest dog ever. But where I'm getting at is you would bring something up to your supervisor or to the mission supervisor and say, "Hey, that was kind of rough," you know? And then what would happen is you don't take it to the mission supervisor for one, because they're an officer and they're usually going to elevate something to a place that gets you paperwork. And, you know, people in the military hate paperwork. Paperwork follows you everywhere. LORs, LOAs, all these different things that can get you in trouble. And so what my supervisor would say, and he would say this to not only me, but and it wasn't only this supervisor, it was almost all of them. You don't want to talk about your problems because then they're going to put you on the bench for mental health and you'll take away your clearance. They use the
Mm,
same clearance that commands such a high salary with not talking about your mental health problems, not talking about how it's affecting you. And so you would never go to the psych doc. We had one in the building, but nobody went because if you did, you got labeled, you would get pulled off of things, which would affect your promotions and other things when you're trying to compete with others to get promoted. And so
wow.
there was this just a stigma. There's a huge
The
stigma
stigma,
of
yeah,
not
yeah.
talking about mental health, whether it's yours or to other people. And the other part of having this clearance is that, you know, they say you cannot tell anybody anything that goes on. So I was married at the time, but I could not go home and tell my
Uh,
spouse what happened during the day. I couldn't tell them that, you know, I witnessed this or that, or
So not only could you not talk to anybody within the military, within the doctors or your supervisors or anybody within your circle, but you also could not go home and speak to someone outside of that group and and spill your guts there.
yeah, so you can imagine how that ends up for people, you know? We were a squadron of a few hundred, and we were the only people that we could really talk to about things, but it had to be inside the walls of work. But we hung out together all the time outside as well because we worked crazy hours. So there's just this really terrible storm that brews when you have really heavy events and missions and things that people see and are a part of, but then you don't offer any kind of way to cope or work through these things.
Yeah, there's nowhere to decompress.
That's why people end up exploding in some way or another, or they break down because they are so full of things that they have not been able to get out that it becomes too much. It was that I stopped talking to people altogether. I became everything was internalized,
Hmm.
and the only outlets were the people that I was working with. But by the time my 3rd and 4th year at this base, that's when we started losing people permanently, and they were people that you would sit right next to every day.
By their own,
By their own hands, they would and take the solution into their own hands. And
because that's the only way they saw. That's the only way out they saw.
yeah, I've had over 20 people that I served with that I knew
Wow,
their names, I knew their families, 20 that have
wow.
taken their own matters into their hands, and it scares the ever living shit out of me.
It would. Yeah, absolutely. So when you got out, I don't know how it is in the Air Force. Do you have reserves and things like that?
Yeah, we had a 4-year reserve thing too. That's when I ended up going overseas, actually over to Afghanistan in that part of the world, and was attached to an army unit for some support of some of the very similar things I did in the Air Force, which obviously looking back was not an ideal situation to continue that on, especially firsthand now.
Well, when you were out, did you seek outside? Did you seek civilian help at all?
So I didn't seek civilian help until about 2018. However, by that time, I was still such a kind of a shell of myself that admittedly I kind of gave up on things rather easily. So I would always find something that was going on with that therapist, and then I would stop for a few months and then I would
Mm,
try again. And then COVID happened in 2020. That's crazy for everybody, and things got even more complicated with my mental health when I had my youngest son who was born with some severe special needs. And so I started taking veterans. I started like seeking out the VA. I didn't have regular insurance, so I only had the VA.
yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. Yeah, I mean, that's all we know. Like, if it's free, I mean, of course, we're gonna go to that and not seek outside help because, of course, we have to pay for it.
Right.
So I know how that is.
Well, and that's another thing that I've got a gripe with, when it comes to veterans treatment is I've got some injuries to my body physically that they will not fix because they attempt to do things at the smallest level. And so they are
Yes.
attempting to tell me that the best way to work a tear of an ligament out is to do PT versus
Yes.
surgically repair it, which just
Yes.
blows me away.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. That they want to start with the smallest thing and go like this is the last resort, the surgery.
Yeah, and isn't it bullshit? Because you give
Absolutely.
everything, or you sign a contract that says you're willing to give everything, and they take everything from you, and the
Yeah.
second that you need anything, they say, "Well, okay, I see that you're here, but we're gonna go ahead and try this first. We're gonna try 5% of what the actual solution is." And then they just
Right.
draw it out, and it's really
Yeah.
disrespectful. And I know so many veterans. I know obviously that I'm not alone. You're not alone. There's so many people that are so frustrated with
Yeah.
how the healthcare system or the healthcare benefits are for veterans and people who are retired from military service. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you have any help transitioning into like so you're going through all of this obviously that they didn't treat, that they didn't care about, that they pushed aside, that they stymied, and then transitioning into the real world, did you have any kind of vocational rehab?
So it's interesting. I attempted to do something on how I best knew. I spent what I considered 6 to 8 years of my life priorly just doing terrible moral things, being parts of things that I didn't agree with. And so I decided, because I was still of faith at the time, that maybe I should do the exact opposite. So that's when I went to go and I pastored at a church. So
Wait, when was this? I'm sorry.
oh,
I was going to ask you about that. How did that come into play in your life?
Yeah, so I was done with military stuff by 2018, and so from 2018 till 2021 or so, I was a pastor. I had went to this church that I'm locally, grew up, and I went as a member for a long time, and then I just reached out and said, "Hey, I'm getting out of the Air Force. This is what I think I can do. I'll take any job, just get me a job so that I can work for the kingdom," as I put it, because I was so busy of taking away from life. I wanted to give into life. And so they hired me as the children's pastor for a little while, and then I would ultimately end up as the youth pastor. But I did that for a while because I needed something that would fill my bucket as opposed to take away from it. And giving to people and to kids and stuff like that was actually pretty fulfilling for me.
That's a pretty profound moment in your life if you think of where how you said you shut down and you stopped talking and then all of a sudden it's like took yourself with outside of yourself and said, "Well, if nobody's going to help me or if I can't help myself, I'm going to help other people." And when you're internalizing so much.
Yeah, looking back, it was really kind of a last straw grasp. I knew that there was charisma and charm and joy inside my body that I was used to, that I grew up with, and that the military had done a really good job of taking away from me. And so I leaned into something I was familiar with and tried to turn the charm on and tried to like make an effort since I was doing it for God.
Have you always been religious or did that come about?
So I'd always been religious for a long time, but I never really thought about religion. And once I got into the military, I started seeing things that my religion was telling me was wrong. I was seeing real life examples, primarily speaking, LGBTQ kind of community. You know, in the military, if you were gay, it was not okay. I mean, this was still before, what's the thing that they passed? Don't ask, don't tell. There we go.
Don't ask, yeah.
Don't ask, don't tell. So, but there was still lingering effects of that. There was still like the mental health stigma. There was the stigma of you better not tell people you're gay because that will still affect how you go on. But my point that I'm attempting to make here is that when I went overseas and and deployed with people that I knew were gay, had I paid the ultimate price, I would have had a burial ceremony and honors and flag and all that stuff, you know, that my spouse at the time would have been able to get. There would also have been survivor benefits. But someone who was gay and in a relationship that would not have got any of that, even though they'd made the same sacrifice, paid the same price. Those kind of things started to get to me because I said that feels very hypocritical. And also, when I got to the church part and was leaning into that, I started questioning, like, wait a second, why is it a sin? Why is this a bad thing? Why are we treating people like this so poorly? Why does it matter to us? And so my faith was being eaten away because of my world experiences with the military, actually. And so
Mm.
when I ultimately ended up leaving the church, I quit over an issue with a volunteer who identified as trans, and they wanted to work in my department. And I was totally cool with it. They were going to the local college to be a teacher for high schoolers, and they wanted to work with high schoolers. However, my leadership, my senior pastor, said that that would not optically look good. And, you know, that's just church speak, some
Oh,
bullshit for being homophobic and transphobic and anything phobic that isn't hetero.
yeah, their own personal view. Because I mean, the church is got to be the place you can go for those, to be accepted.
Well, that's what you think, and that's what, as a church, the
Right.
church that I worked at every Sunday morning, they would tell people from the stage, "Everyone's welcome here. Everybody has a seat at the table." But the reality is they only wanted to take your money, and the only seats that they would offer you were seats that they wanted to give you, not
Oh
ones
my
that, you know,
goodness.
not everybody had the same seat opportunity. And so I called that bullshit out because he wanted me to let this person know that they would be able to, because the alternative to the solution was that this person work in the audio visual closet that had all the equipment and ran, you know, the production. So that essentially
Literally in the
they
closet.
wanted to put someone who was trans in the closet. And that was
And they wanted you to do the dirty work to tell them that that's what they were gonna do.
exactly. And I told them they can go fuck themselves, and I quit.
Good for you.
And it was 3 months later that I officially had stepped away fully from faith because I was like, "Surely it's just this church, it's not." But I realized more and more that I was no longer really into faith at all, and so I began my deconstruction process at that point, and then I got into real estate because you know, again, I'm trying to work through my crippling mental health, but I'm doing things that on the surface seem really weird, like you mentioned. Like that's crazy that you would be able to go be a pastor and give into things like when you're battling that. But for me, it was again my last defense mechanism that would ultimately
Yeah.
crack when in about 2022 when I got admitted into a mental health inpatient clinic for a week, not by my own choice.
Inpatient?
Inpatient.
So, can I ask what happened?
Yeah, I have in the past struggled with thoughts of ending things. Again, had just talked about, the squadron that I was a part of
Mhm.
and how not being able to talk to people about things, kind of makes you bottle up. And anyways,
Mhm.
I had apparently exhibited some behavior or used some words that my wife at the time, now my ex, and my parents kind of got together, and I opened a door and there were people there.
So it was like a straight up intervention.
Yeah, it was an intervention that I didn't ask for, but and so then I spent, like I said, a full week in the VA at the VA center in the mental health inpatient clinic, and
Did that help at all?
not a fucking bit.
What did it do? Like, what did it consist of?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You would think that
Yeah,
there would be a lot of, like, intensive one-on-ones or things to kind of
something.
help someone get through that if they were literally committed, and what it turned into was about 18 to 20 oh, wait, let's see here, let me think about this. 18 to 20 hours a day inside your room.
Come on.
Inside your room, I had one morning group session, which there was about 20 of us, all with different mental health reasons of being there.
Yeah, first of all, that's way too many.
Way too many, and it was 1 hour long, and they had one of those in the evening as well, and the only one-on-one kind of intervention you got was your health check, like the doctor come in and check their it
Oh,
it was awful, and
huh.
so really what it turned out to me was I got through the Dune book. It was like 900 pages, but I found that in the library, and I read that.
What is that?
It's like a sci-fi book. I think, Timothy Chalamet is plays the main character in the movies that are out, Dune.
Okay.
I didn't get anything out of that and, out of my experience. In fact, it turned me really sour. In fact, it actually, like, turned me even angrier.
Well, yeah, they isolated you once again. Like, you're alone with your thoughts once again, basically,
That's exactly it, but I also started that anger towards my parents and my ex-spouse. I just
for
stopped
putting
talking
you
to them. I
there.
started get because I felt so betrayed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The way that it was done was just not a way that was out of love, it was more out of fear,
Mm,
and there's a huge difference to how that sticks. You do something out of love, usually it sticks with you, but you get people to do things out of fear, it doesn't breed loyalty, it doesn't breed anything that is positively links you with that person.
so what is your relationship like with your parents now?
I don't have a relationship with them.
Mm.
So many things. I hope, I guess, like, people, like, listening are probably like, "Oh my god, this guy is sad." There's a lot's happened. But what I will say is that since 2024, when I stepped, into the world of separation and divorce and started taking myself seriously, I lost 75 pounds. I stopped ultimately drinking. My partner and I, we just celebrated 100 days sober fully.
Good for you,
Thank
congratulations.
you. Because alcohol was a huge problem in the Air Force as well. I'm sure it was in the Army, like,
Oh,
drinking
yeah.
culture is huge, and so there's so many things about my life that were just spiraling down, 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 and slowly but surely, I have started since, 2024 taking those things back and reclaiming them in my life. So, yeah, it's been really, really pretty hard and difficult.
You're still here.
I'm still here. I'm still here,
You're
and
still here.
I got news just about 3 weeks ago of the latest person from my squadron that, ended things, and they still come every, couple of year, it feels like, and it makes me so sad and makes me think about those things, but it's also where it gives me the strength to talk about mental health and work through things, not only with myself, with my partner, but also raising up boys, raising up young men in this world is a scary thing. I mean, raising women in this time would be scary too. But there's a lot of scariness going on, and I want my children to feel like they can speak what's going on and name their emotions and not feel like they have to bottle them up. And so that's what I strive for, these days.
Good for you. How did you get past it? I mean, you were at this point where they obviously felt that they needed to do this intervention. You must have been talking about some things or feeling some type of way. How did you're are you still thinking of these thoughts at all nowadays or lately?
The depression comes in different forms. mostly these days. I don't really think about that kind of stuff. I haven't for a while. I'm absolutely not through it. I would say it's just like someone who says that, who's sober, they're still an alcoholic. I still have the mental
Oh yeah.
health problems. It's just how am I managing them now? And what I feel like I'm doing is managing them in the same form as I'm managing alcohol. Like we don't keep alcohol in the house. We don't, it's not a thought. On the other side of things with mental health, I am making sure it's a thought. I am going to therapy. I try to go every week, if not every 2 weeks. I don't, so that way I have something to talk through and an outlet. This podcast that my partner and I started, joint discussions. This is another outlet that has really given me kind of life and zest in a way that allows me to reclaim who I am. And when I spent last summer living on my own for a bit and kind of understanding when everything was stripped away, what was left in the aftermath, and then seeing what I could build from there. And since then, I've met someone who I'm compatible with on every level, and we have a shared vision and a shared drive, and that kind of stuff is what gets people through tough mental health days. So, fun fact, today's actually my birthday.
Oh, happy
Yeah,
birthday. You joined me on your birthday?
I did, and you know
Oh, I
what?
feel so special.
I
Happy
Well,
birthday.
thank you. Yeah, I like that you like to do things on your birthday that you like, and so I love talking like
Aw.
this. I did, radio in college, and I did sports, and I love having kinda conversations with people about topics that I enjoy doing. But the birthday times can even be like sad times, And
Depending on your memories, yeah, depending on
Right, well, and it
yeah,
so
yeah.
the last birthday that I had was all alone last year. Everybody had all of the church friends that I had when I was pastoring walked away. I was no longer married, obviously, or with somebody. I had no parents. My siblings had turned away from me for a bit, and so I was all alone. But now today, I look what just a year has brought me,
I
and a year has
I was
brought
gonna say, look at where you are just a year later, yeah.
yeah, a year later, I have a beautiful house that I share with somebody who, like I said, we have shared vision. We have 6 sons, 50% of the time, thankfully, because that would truly drive us crazy if we had to do that. Yeah, a year later, today, I've got a house full of people who love me and cherish me and adore me. I'm doing something that I love to do. I have hobbies. I have a couple really amazing friends, and I'm starting to meet some new friends, both through this podcasting venture and through my partner who does so many things in the world of like astrology and the witch world. And I'm learning all about these things and I love it so much. So I have so much to be thankful for and happy about.
But it's so amazing to hear, like, how like you said, how much progress you've made in a year. You kinda just kinda seemed how to find yourself and live with yourself all over again, like, you almost started over, it seems like.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about life is that in order for life to occur, a lot of times death has to happen first. And I don't even mean death in the physical sense of like a human body or something, but I'm talking about death of events. And so I spent the last year and a half doing a lot of dying and doing a lot of deep soul digging and soul craft work and going under the shadows and trying to face a lot of things that ensured that I wouldn't repeat my prior life and what all the things that happened.
Yeah, so it's really quite amazing to hear how you have overcome despite like no help. And unfortunately, so many people don't get that opportunity, don't have that mindset or whatever it takes to better yourself on your own. And that's another thing that drives me crazy about the whole thing about veterans because every company or government, everybody's like, "Oh, you know that we stand for veterans, we're pro-veteran, this and that." But when it comes down to it, I mean, that's all for show. What
Yeah, you show me 1 or 2 veterans who are taken care of, and I'll introduce you to 50 others who are fighting the system and struggling to get even the most basic care.
I feel like that is a good thought to leave people with. That it's important to think about others, especially others that have sacrificed for you, such as veterans. So, I thank you so much for being here, Mr. James.
I'm so thankful that you had me on. I'm a person that has always been very open about things, and that's the way we make change as we talk about it and we bring up those things. And again, a lot of people might be like, "Wow, I never even knew that happens." There's so many things that happen that you just have to find the courage to talk about, and sometimes you need a platform to do it on. And I'm thankful that you do that kind of work for your podcast. Talking about all the things from the roots of the problems and how we grow from that. So
Oh, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. That's really what I want to do is just give people a platform so that it's awareness. Like you said, we have to talk. We have to get these things out. It can't be just in your own little corner of your own little world anymore.
yeah, we have to get them out before we get silenced anyways. That's what they're going towards. So
Absolutely. So thank you for your voice. I appreciate that.
yeah, thank you as well. Have a great day.
I wish you all the best and you are welcome back anytime and take care of yourself.
Alrighty, thanks.
I would like to tell everyone out there that please be safe. Please take care of your mental health. It is not a bad thing to need to talk to somebody. If you're feeling any thoughts of kind of what Mr. James has been through, and there are still helpful hotlines out there for you. 988 is a national hotline. If you're thinking about harming yourself, you can text it, you can dial it 988, and please share this with somebody you feel may need to hear it, or if you just want to help get the word out. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you next week on From Dirt We Grow. Thank you so much for being here.